Hey everyone, George Cow here, and I'm doing another one of these kindred spirit conversations with an old colleague and friend, an old friend and colleague. Uh, Not in age, but in the fact that we've known each other for a couple years now. And this is Tad Hargrave, and it's you all. Some of you probably know about his work. His website is marketingforhippies.com. Great title, and he has Tad, how many blog posts do you have on that website?
Like 650 or something.
Yeah, I have, you know how many blog posts I have on my website?
How many?
Two. I mean, I just literally started blogging on my own site this year.
Right.
Funny thing, of course, is 7 years into internet marketing and teaching and training on all this stuff. I'm like, maybe I should have a blog on my site. I hear it's like good for SEO or something. Is that helpful? So I literally just have my second blog post up.
Nice.
Last year though, I did make 200 videos and basically short blog posts, but
Yeah.
now it's time to actually get on my own site. So maybe I want to ask you a little bit about that. 650 blog posts.
Yeah.
Actually, Tad, I would say you inspired me years before I made my transition in like we talked. I mean, we met each other probably back in 2010, something like that, 2009 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And in the very beginning, you actually suggested to me, George, um, and maybe just because given our values and our shared desire to help people, and you're like, why don't you just, you actually made this comment. He's like, why don't you just give away all your content and just like charge for coaching?
Huh.
You actually said you were the first person to say that to me, actually.
Huh.
And well, 5-6 years later, I'm doing that. Yeah. And so I think you planted the seed back then. What I really like about this thing about giving away content, and ironically, of course, you actually sell some content. So I want to talk about that.
Yeah,
I
sure.
always tell people that I'm in this radical phase. I'm kind of in a rebellious radical phase right now of just giving away all my content. But I still have clients that I suggest and recommend that they sell online courses and things like that. But what I like is that I'm able to just refer people to a particular
Totally.
right, particular asset, like particular blog post, particular video. Oh, you have a question about how to write a sales page? I have exactly the template for that. And here it is. You have a question about how do I draft content naturally? Oh, I just wrote about that. Here's the exact link. And I mean, you really were one of the pioneers in my mind of using that model in our circles, our industry. So I really appreciated that. But tell me, now that you've been doing it for years,
Yeah.
any reflections on it?
Well, it's funny. I mean, it wasn't a strategy for me,
Hmm.
particularly. It was just that I had a lot of things I wanted to write,
Yeah.
in getting my own thoughts clear. And so, just putting them up on a blog where I could get immediate feedback on it, and I could um, kind of put it up and then tinker on it. That's just what I ended up doing. And so then people would say, oh, because some of the blog posts are like 20 pages long,
Yeah.
the documents. Then people are like, Ted, this is an ebook. They should turn it into ebook. And I'd be like, but then I have to edit it, and then I have to do much more work. Like, I just know it's like good enough for a blog post, but if I was going to charge for it, I'd want to tidy it up some.
Yeah.
But I always had an inward sense of eventually I'll turn it into something that I can sell. It's like, think of like Post Secrets, that where they collected those postcards, and they had a blog of people saying postcards anonymously of secrets. And then eventually that got turned into, some coffee table books. And so there's a lot of models of that. So I just had a sense of like, yeah, eventually this will be taken off the blog and turned into something. And and I just felt a lot of patience with that, and just too, I don't know if it's too lazy, but just like not particularly motivated to turn it into products initially. Because most of my money I was making through touring, and that was fine. And also I have had a very similar thing of, it's so nice when talking with somebody to be able to give them a little bite-sized nugget blog post that directly addresses their thing. Because, if I've taken the time to write as a blog post, it's probably better than I could say it.
Yeah.
to them and faster and easier for them, and they can just look at it whenever. And then I can say, yeah, I've had coaching calls where it was like after 10 minutes, I'm like, okay, let's stop. I'm going to refer you to these things. I want you to work on that and then come back and we'll talk more. Which saves them time and money, and they come back to me with something really polished that I can work on rather than paying me for my time on it.
Totally. And that's one of the things I've always appreciated about you. And I really feel it's important to acknowledge and appreciate your leadership in our circles. And when I say our circles, just for everyone watching this, Tad and I run in the circle of marketing coaches, business coaches. Particularly, we have an audience who tend to be, some people call them heart-centered, or sort of more, well, marketing for hippies is Tad's website, right? So, if you're watching this, you're probably a hippie, whether you acknowledge it or not. And so, yeah, I really appreciate your leadership on doing what's right. I mean, that's really the bottom line, is doing what is good and of the highest benefit for our audience, our clients. And of course, not that either of us are perfect at it, but I see you relentless in doing that. And so,
it's interesting because I think the only thing I sort of push back on that is the framing of, there's a way it gets framed as like, oh, Tad, you're doing the right thing in a sort of self-sacrificing way, because often doing the right thing means you're kind of taking one for the team. And maybe there's some of that. But it's funny, one of my colleagues, Amatma, and I, we did this workshop in the Bay Area called Fuck Money, but it was all about alternative economic models of barter, pay what you can, gift economy, sliding scale. And we were just looking at it. And it's funny, before we came up with like a little PowerPoint presentation to do at the top of it, just to set the framework. Yeah. And so we were like, well, it'd be good to, like, why do any of these models? And we realized that all the reasons fell into one of two camps. It was either altruistic reasons or selfish reasons. So the altruistic reasons being, it's the right thing to do. It's the ethical thing, politically astute and on point and all that. And then the selfish things were, and we realized there were actually more selfish reasons to do it. Mm. And so similarly, with the blog posts, it's, I get there is an altruistic element to it. Yeah. But there was also, for SEO for my site, it was really useful if I'm at a networking event and I'm chatting with somebody and I can be like, I'm going to send you a blog post. Sure. I send my blog post, be like, hey, if you'd like, I could add you to my email list. Sure. So I would never suggest to anyone to do something. And this is, I think, a place that is challenging for a lot of folks in this field, is there's a sense of like, okay, I either do the right thing or I do marketing right, So I either kind of collapse and just give it all away because that's the right thing to do, or I posture and I do all this marketing that doesn't feel great but is effective supposedly. And so I think people feel like they're caught in this bizarre choice of doing something effective or doing something generous and altruistic, and then this muddy compromise of like, well, I'll do some things ethically, but then I'm also going to use some manipulative tactics I really hope nobody catches. And I feel like that false dichotomy is part of the challenge that we're in, that there's a whole other domain of composure, which most of us are stumbling towards, where it's a real focus on win-win. Yes. Or as you would say, win-win-win. That it's a win for us, it's a win for our clients, and when we do business partnerships, it's a win for us, the person we partner with, and the people, as you talk about. And so I just feel like that's the thing to be holding. It's like, if it's the right thing to do and you can't pay the bills, it's probably not the fullest expression of the right thing to do, because it's leaving you out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. There's a term that I've heard used, enlightened self-interest, right? And that's, now what's interesting though is I think that's, and it's probably too long a conversation to have in this one, but I do think it is a good thing to promote generosity and altruism. And I think you're right that it needs to be promoted. These days I'm calling it sustainable generosity, and like sustainable generosity from our side. Sharing blog posts is a way to be able to help. Doesn't matter if the blog post is read by one person that I send it to or 1,000 people in a day. I only did work once, and it is generous on many, many levels. And then I talk about the other side of the coin is if we do sustainable generosity right, if we do it right, if we do it effectively, ironically, the return is reciprocal gratitude, which is that if we are actually serving our audience in a way that they want to be served, that they understand, and that actually is helping them out, their natural human response is an outpouring of some kind. And the outpouring is either to share our post forward, or the outpouring is, my gosh, or emailing us to say, that was amazing, that was so helpful. And another thing I've been talking about is like, hey, listen, the return is more of their attention, which is actually the new currency, in my opinion. Like, they give you their attention. If they're giving, if someone is watching this video right now, they're not also at the same time giving their attention to another video. I mean, it's pretty impossible to watch and understand two videos at the same time. So, but yeah, anyway, any thoughts on that?
Oh man. Well, yeah, I like that term, sustainable generosity. Yeah, I think that's good because it's it's just a dangerous game to play. This generosity is collapsing. Generosity is just giving until we're so utterly depleted. Yeah, and the enlightened self-interest. Like you're saying, yeah, we get their attention. So I do my workshops at Pay What You Can. I just got back from a tour. I did a workshop in Montreal, Ottawa, and then 2 in Toronto. And in Toronto, I had like 18 people, no, 18 people in Montreal, 22 in Ottawa, and then 60.
Wow.
60 in Toronto. And it just sold out. The room was full. So then the room happened to be available the next day. We did another workshop with 22. And I asked people, I said, so raise your hand if you're here because somebody you respect and love told you to come. And of course, almost everybody. Raise your hand if you're here and you've heard about me from multiple people, more than one person. A number of hands went up. So, it's interesting with the Pay What You Can. So people who come, there are some people who paid, like it's a modified Pay What You Can, so $25 deposit to lock in the spot, then they pay on top of that at the end. So some people, it's like $25, they didn't pay anything in addition to that. Mm-hmm. And, but I know that those people are going to now tell more people.
Yes.
And I asked him, but it's just funny. Then I said, because I talk about this idea of reducing risk as a form of marketing, which generosity plays into, because if you're generous and you give people enough tastes of you, it reduces the risk because now they know who you are. But I said, so raise your hand. It's like, if I were to charge for this, I would probably charge $200. Raise your hand if you would have come if this was $200. And I said, it's like, let's have a moment of candor with each other. Yeah. And nobody raises their hand. Almost.
Interesting. Wow. So,
just get that this made me more money.
Yeah.
For the amount of effort it took me to market this, which was a few emails.
Yeah.
I had like a Facebook ad, I emailed my list, emailed some local hubs. I think one other thing, but it was like, there wasn't a ton of effort exerted. And yet here we are, thousands of dollars gets made for me. Yeah. And the other piece of it with Pay What You Can is the tricky piece with Pay What You Can is that you can't force their generosity.
Of course.
And in fact, when you put pressure on them, it kills it. If at the end of the day, even if the day was really good, I suddenly reverted to some manipulative selling tactics to pressure them.
Yeah.
Then the generosity would just dry up instantly. I had this with some colleagues of mine that they helped holistic practitioners build WordPress websites. Such a killer niche. And I was like, I invited them to my workshops. They presented. It was always really good. And then I was in Winnipeg and I did a workshop and they happened to be in Saskatchewan, which is right next door. And I said, hey, come on over. I just reached like 100 people in Winnipeg. The vibes are extremely good. I'll endorse your thing. So they came and they did a lunch and learn, hour-long presentation, and it was great until the very end, like the last 2 minutes. And then they're like, so we've got this package, and then they did the whole, it's $10,000, but today it's like $4,000. And somebody got up to leave because they had to go to get back to work. But please sit down. We're not done yet.
Oh, wow.
And then his wife, in the most contrived way imaginable, was like, honey, I really like these people. Can't we give them a better deal? All right, different color marker.
Jeez.
And then he was like, and this deal is only good for the next 5 hours.
Oh, my.
Right? And I didn't hear about this until a month after. I was driving with my friend Jeff Golfman from Toronto to Guelph, and he's like, I wanted to tell you in person because he also had promoted the event. And, of course, they didn't understand. The people who led it did not understand the fallout. And it took me being on the phone to try to lay it out for them, to be like, look, Jeff wanted to bring this guy, Brendan Brazier, who's like a vegan nutritionist, wanted to bring him to Winnipeg the next month. He can't do it now. Because like this has soured the waters a bit. Now it's like people are like, oh, you endorse these people. And they ended up being really high pressure and sleazy at the end. So he's like, he had to wait. And I had to personally follow up with all of them. I didn't even know everyone who'd gone. But I emailed everyone who I thought would have been there and just like, I'm sorry, please send me your feedback. Yeah. They did. And people were like, yeah, I trust you less. So I feel like in the end I cleaned it up, but it took an immense amount of effort for me. And I then emailed all that feedback to those people who were so stuck in the marketing has to be this way that they couldn't, because they were like, they heard it. And like, is there anything we can do? I was like, yeah, apologize.
Wow.
To those people.
Yeah.
And just a video, just like, you know what? We're sorry that, we know that didn't feel good, and we're still learning in marketing, and we heard these tactics worked and we've used them, and we're seeing the impact of it, and we're really going to reconsider how we do it, something like that. Yeah. And they were like, well, there's a witch hunt. We don't want to be, and they were just so too defensive about it, which meant I've never worked with them again since then. So there's so many levels of so they went for the quick, applied pressure. And what that did was it meant nobody in that room wanted to work with them. Right. And I bet you a lot of them would have turned into clients. I bet you they might have gotten
actually, Tad, I would say that tactic works gangbusters in front of other audiences that are accustomed to those tactics, because they are in an emotion. Well, I would say that your audience is actually quite psychologically savvy.
I've also just gone through my workshop where I pulled a lot of that apart, so that probably didn't help.
Yeah, right. You've already trained them to look at marketing from a more psychologically savvy perspective. Because the message that I will always keep talking about is how many people are being taken really by the tactics that you and I both know we don't want to use. Actually, you and I probably have used it in the past at some point. I know I have. Sure. And our peers certainly have. Even the people that we've endorsed in the past have done that.
Well, and let me also say this is because I think it's important to have this conversation of like, when we say it works, what do we mean by that?
Right.
Right. Because yes, there's no doubt about it. You go to these events and people are running to the back of the room and signing up. Of course, the side of this that never gets seen by the public are the number of refunds that get asked for. Yeah. The people who go who have negative to mediocre experiences at those things. Yeah. And that it's not sustainable. I remember when you talked about sustainable marketing, and the question was like, whatever tactic you're thinking about doing, imagine that everyone in the marketplace. It was just funny. I was just sharing this and singing your praises in Toronto, but it's like, yeah, imagine that everyone in the marketplace is going to do this tactic. And all of a sudden it becomes very clear what would work and what wouldn't, and what's actually sustainable for the marketplace. Because a lot of these tactics, if they were done, they work. What it means is no trust anymore in the marketplace. Nobody goes to these free events anymore that their friends tell them about, because they know their friend's getting a cut. They know they're going to get worked. They know there's going to be like teaser content, mostly pitching a bigger thing. And so it's like short-term works, long-term doesn't. And the sustainable approach, I think, to generosity and to marketing is all centered around, I was reading a book called Monopolize Your Marketplace, and talking about how there's 3 roles in marketing. And I love this. So this is my kind of rendition of it. Like, so the first is just you get their attention. And I think when people hear that, get attention, they think, oh, well, that means, of course, shocking headlines and provocative pictures and paying a lot of money for ads. But of course, then I ask people in the room, it's like, again, please raise your hand if you're here because a friend told you to come.
Yeah.
Almost everybody. So I'm like, word of mouth got your attention. In fact, word of mouth is the primary thing that gets attention, actually.
Yes.
And I mean, just not even in any altruistic, it's just you look at the studies and the numbers, and of course. Yeah. So then number two, the second role is to filter, to establish if it's a fit. The way they talked about is to facilitate the decision-making process. But ultimately, it's like you're trying to filter to see, would this be good for you or not? And then third, you're trying to lower the risk of taking that first step. But that second piece to me is the heavy lifting. So that what that means is, it's like to contrast those three roles instead of one role. Because the one role that seems to be put out from most marketing I see is you get the sale, you close the deal. They say yes, that's the goal, is getting them to say yes. But what if that wasn't one of the roles of marketing at all? What if it was just to get their attention, to see if it's a fit, and to lower the risk of taking the first step? And that does not mean you don't make killer offers. It doesn't mean you don't do the market research. It means you actually have to do that much more. Because, but then when you're standing up in front of a group of people, you're not thinking like, how do I get everyone to say yes? Right. You're just saying, okay, here's what this is, here's what this isn't. Here's who I think it's for, here's who I think it isn't for. If you're this kind of person, do not sign up.
Right.
Don't waste your time. Don't waste my time. And here's the best deal I can offer you right now. And then, because then what happens is the only people who sign up, ideally, are the ones who are really a fit, which means they're going to have a great experience, which also means there's going to be no buzzkills in your group who shouldn't be there in the first place, which means a better experience for everybody, which means the word of mouth is killer, which means it's a little bit slower, but much more solid organic growth, where people are like, shit, every time I hear about that person, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
That's better. And then, then it's like we re-engineer the whole marketing process around filtering. So it's one of the things I'm pretty sure you saw my Are You Sure page?
Yes.
Yeah. So, it's just this idea that there's your sales letter, and then there's where they pay, the pay now button. And so it's like dividing those, and in between them putting a page that's I call the Are You Sure page. And for me, it's just like there's a video on top saying like, thanks for wanting to sign up. I'm super flattered you would. And my guess is you, like me, skim through the sales letter, of course, because I do that too.
Yeah.
And so there's important shit in that actually about whether this is a fit for you. So I've cut and pasted the most important kind of filtering things below. I'm going to ask you to actually read it now and sit with it for a few minutes to really see if this is the right fit, the right timing for you. And if it still is, I'm so happy to have you on board. And if not, I hope I'll see you down the road somewhere. And the feedback was the people who didn't buy were saying things to me like, thank you so much. I sat with them and I realized I'm actually going traveling. So I was going to miss most of the sessions. And, and it was just, and thank you so much. Like, I trust you more. I look forward to working with you even more now down the road. And the people who said yes were like, they were like twice as invested because now they'd really thought about it.
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, holy shit, this is a fit. I'm extra in.
Is it okay if I include one of your Are You Sure pages in the links?
Oh yeah, totally.
Okay, so I'll just include. Well, I'll probably include a sales page, Are You Sure page.
Well, there's a blog post on this.
You have a blog post on it.
Yeah,
okay.
marketingfreecopies.com. I think it may just be r-u- or something.
Yeah, something like that. Okay, cool.
But it's so I just think it's like, and whether it's a page like that or not, Suzanne Falter Barnes and Jeffrey Van Dyke, colleagues of ours, they did their spiritual marketing quest, and they did something I loved. On the Saturday night, they did the whole, first of all, they were just like, we're going to tell you about our programs. They didn't do that, can I talk about our programs thing, where it's like, you're going to do it anyways.
Right.
Why are you asking me? Just do it. But so they're just like, we're going to do that. And they gave their best pitch, but it was very much, the whole framing of it was like, here's what we think this is for. If you still feel drawn to it and you don't feel what we said, talk to us. We're happy to. And there's big price tags on these things. And then at the end, they were like, so we're not going to let you buy tonight. You have to sleep on this.
Wow.
Just tomorrow. We'd love it if you make a decision by 11 a.m. tomorrow because it's wrapping up and it just make our lives easier. But they wouldn't let people buy that night. And I love that because they were like, this is a lot of money.
Yeah.
And even selfishly, if you're thinking about having a big coaching program, yeah, you could hype up a room.
Yeah.
But now you're going to then you get excited, and then people are like, oh, I thought about it and I can't. And then you get disappointed, kind of heartbroken.
Right.
Or they don't participate fully, and then you feel guilty about taking their money. Yeah.
Wow, man, this is amazing. Do you have a couple more minutes, or should we wrap it up?
No, I've got time.
Okay. Because I want to ask you one more question, which is, I mean, I've known you for 7 years, and just like any business, your business has gone through ups and downs. And of course, like I said, any business goes through ups and downs. Just that's the nature of growth, marketing, the market transformation, evolution of the market, evolution of ourselves, evolution of our competition, etc. Now, what's different is, again, I'm going to say that throughout that time, you have relentlessly sought to do what is in the enlightened self-interest. Okay, I'll see what you.
Sure. Okay.
So, I remember hearing from you at least once that, oh yeah, that workshop really, barely could fill that workshop. And you do tons of workshops, so there's obviously times when you couldn't fill workshops. I'd love for you to hear you talk about trusting life, because the reason why you are willing and able to do things that are the reason why you're able to say no to the short-term marketing that works, in quotes, is because you trust in a longer-term karma, I guess.
Right.
So talk about that, and sometimes when you do trust the long-term, when you do have a "Are you sure?" page in the middle, you are going to get a percentage of people who are going to say, I was literally going to buy. And if and of course, some people who stop at the "Are you sure?" page may actually be a good fit, because they might actually turn out to be good. But talk about trusting in life, and then therefore giving yourself the security and confidence to keep doing these kinds of things that feel good to you.
Yeah, there are three things I want to say about this. One is, for whatever reason in my life, I've never been stressed about money.
Amazing.
It's just not been a thing for me. It's not part of my or not never, but it's not a dominant thing.
Here's the thing I wanted to clarify. It's not that you don't have a trust fund. You don't have this huge amount of savings, and sometimes money is technically or objectively looking challenging.
Yeah, and I'm a white male in North America, so I've got that. I'm doing all right. But yeah, there's something where it hasn't been the trigger for me. And I guess everyone's got different I've got friends who around business and money, they constantly feel inadequate, or for other people it's dating, for other people it's their health or appearance. And so everyone's got different things, but for whatever reason, business, money hasn't been a big one for me. And it's so funny, I'm 6 years behind on my back taxes. And they're getting done now. But I remember I was sitting there and I was like, it was just apparent, okay, I could owe a lot of money. And my friends were like, aren't you freaked out? And I was like, well, the worst that happens is they freeze my bank accounts. I go in jail for a little while. That's all right. So I don't know, for whatever reason, it's and maybe I should be having stronger reactions, and maybe that's part of why it was 6 years of that. But so there's that. But the second thing I would say is, there's the old analogy of, when you see a bird, you see these big birds on these really thin branches. You're just like, that branch could break at any second. What is a bird thinking? Trusting a branch like that. But of course, the bird doesn't trust the branch. It's trusting its wings. It's trusting its capacity to fly if it breaks.
Wow.
So the safety in life doesn't come from circumstance. It comes from trusting ourselves to be able to respond to whatever happens. And the third thing, in the Quran, there's that line, often quoted, that trust in God and tie up your camels, where they all arrive at camp. And he tells them to tie up their camels, and they're like, shouldn't we trust in Allah? And he's like, yeah, but also. So, which gets back to the whole sustainable generosity thing, is, to me, that is intimately connected with business model. That building a business model that works for us. Which is also gets back to this whole like, because you're saying, well, you're starting to, giving away your stuff for free, and here I am taking most of my blog posts and turning them into ebooks that I'm selling, and doing the opposite thing. And then people can look at that and say, well, which is the right thing to do? And the assumption of like, oh, well, George doing this, that's the more enlightened thing to do, or Tad doing a page scan workshop, well, that's enlightened to do. And of course, there's questions around being true to our values and our politics. There's questions around the accessibility of our work, but sustainability is also a piece. And there are so many different business models.
Yes.
Some people love doing the one-on-one coaching, and so everything kind of folds into that. And so it's like, yeah, if I give away the content for free, but it turns into more one-on-one clients, that's their jam. Some people love touring. So everything in their business model is built around the touring.
Just to clarify, touring meaning giving workshops, to share our expertise, and work with clients and groups.
Yeah, some people want to do that, and some people, that's the fucking last thing they want to do.
Yeah. They
want to like be at home, raising their kids, so they build their whole business online. I know there are some people who sell their products online on a pay-per-scan basis or sliding scale. There are people who, like me, do the workshops on that. Some people do the one-on-one workshop on the pay-per-scan sliding scale, but the workshops they charge a flat fee for. So there's just so many different ways to do this, and the question to me is, is it still accessible to the people you want it to be accessible to? Is it in alignment with your values? Does it feel good for you? But also, does it actually sustain you while giving value? And there are just a million different business models on how to do that. There's no right or wrong way to do it. But it's collapsing can look so fucking noble. And it's just collapsing, which is like, it's generated from this kind of like, please love me. I want people to love me. Yeah. And what it turns into is resentment in the end of like, I give so much to my community. And so it's like what we're giving them is this burden of taking care of us, instead of the safety being from an awareness of what are my needs, and that it's okay to actually have needs. Yeah. And then how do I get them met? But it's the whole, you take what you need, but you don't take much more than you need. So you build a business model that sustains you in a way that feels good, and is right for you. And it's like, because I know you see this a lot too, of the 6-figure this, 7-figure that. Yeah. And frankly, I used to be about that, and I don't have much of a charge of it anymore, because almost everyone I see who says that lives in the States, where you don't have health care.
Yeah, it's true.
And most people in the States are like one hospital visit away from bankruptcy. And so it's real. And I live in Canada, where we've got, pretty much free healthcare. So it's like, it's a different thing. Mm-hmm. So for people in the States, or country, I was going to say other countries without, but almost every other country has. So, but it's a different kind of thing. Or if you're a parent and you've got lots of kids, I'm a single guy. My needs are going to be different than, so sometimes it's easy to look at people and be like, oh, they're charging that much money. And remember Derek Jensen, I don't know if you've ever read any of his.
Yes, I've read about his work. Yeah.
But he's written, I don't know, maybe 20 books at this point. But it's only in the last decade or so that writing all those books is sustaining him. Because, book selling is not a lucrative business. That's not the way to make millions necessarily. And so but when he was coming to Alberta to do a tour, he was going to Saskatchewan when we were going to bring him to Edmonton. It didn't end up happening, but it's going to be $10,000. And all the anarchists, in the scene were like, man, he should just be doing it for free.
Right.
And it's like, and he's got Crohn's disease. He hates traveling.
Wow.
He's got to pay his publicist. He's got to pay the travel. There's accommodations in there. And like, what about all the time he's worked for you and he hasn't gotten paid?
Totally.
I was at the Whole Life Expo. Marianne Williamson was speaking, and somebody got up. This was 15 years ago. Somebody got up and was like, this is just a money grab, a new age money grab. And I knew the people running it. A fellow Justin Hilton was running it for a year. And I knew everyone was barely getting paid.
Wow.
It looked like I get it. It's all the booths and like, how are they not? And it's like, yes, a lot of cash flow, tons of money going through it, but the expenses were such that, so it's one of the things I say in the marketing workshops now is like, just get it. The marketing doesn't make you any money. $0 marketing makes you. business model makes you money or not in
Yes.
terms of profit.
Brilliant.
Yeah, you can have, like, you know, somebody, a friend of mine was saying he talked to Brian Tracy. I don't know how true or not the story is, but it sounds true. Was he said he was talking with Brian Tracy after one of his, you know, one of these huge mega events. And he's like, what would you do differently if you could go back? And he's like, I would never have built it this big. I worked like 25 days of the month to pay everybody on my team, and the rest goes to me. But it's like, he just built such a huge empire. And so there's a cost to that. And not to say that you shouldn't do it. And not
Now
to
he has people depending on him, so he feels obligated to say, if I don't keep doing this, all these people are going to lose their jobs.
Yeah. And there's something beautiful about that, of like,
Sure.
man, God bless it. Somebody wants to do this and employ people. There's something incredibly noble about that. And it's a different thing. So it's not that small is always the most beautiful necessarily, but it's not that big is always the most beautiful either. So it's just like what's going to be sustainable for you? What's the lifestyle that you actually want? And to find a way that you can be, I love it, sustainably generous, that doesn't burn you out, but also not, I don't know what the term I want to use for this is, but not a contrived generosity where all of the generosity is done in order to get them to say yes, in order to get something from them.
Right.
You go to their website, you can't see a damn thing because there's a squeeze page. And it's like, enter your email before you can get, because that would be like going to an ice cream shop and you're like, hey, can I try a little sample of this? Sure, yeah, absolutely. Just sign up on our email list. You know,
you know, I'll put another term that's describing this. That's called strategic generosity.
Yeah. And, you know, and I think there's a bit of both. It's like, if somebody comes to your website, it's good to have, okay, so you want them to sign up on your email list. The reality is, if you offer some free gift or something, it's like, hey, you enter your email, then you get this in return, and that's the trade, you'll get a dramatic increase in the people signing up on your email list, most likely. But if you don't then have any other way for them to check you out, blog posts, videos, articles, quizzes, anything like that, audio, then it's when there's just strategic, and actually people resent it.
Yeah.
So I think there's this good mix of both. Like, for example, I mean, most of my blog posts, I've never, to my knowledge, really written a strategic blog post designed being like, this is going to get traffic.
Right. Interesting. Huh.
I've just written about the things I wanted to write about.
Wow.
I think some of them have ended up maybe being strategic, but I've really never sat down and been like, okay, like, my people, what's the title I could give it, and tested it.
So you don't do keyword research?
No, at all. No, and I don't even do any analytics on my website. Like, at one point, one of my friends, Jamie Almond, who's my savior a lot of times, she said, did you know that 20% of the traffic on your website comes from one blog post?
Wow.
Because it had been linked to from a Huffington Post thing. I was like, huh. And then we were like, we should do something about that, and we still haven't. Like, turn that blog post to make it work a little harder. But so now I don't do any of that. I will at some point. And by the way, that's not, I feel like people could hear that and be like, oh, he's so cool and chill, I'm totally going to not give a shit too. I'm not recommending it. You know, it's like, man, like, if laziness around certain things were a virtue, I'd be a saint on a lot of this, but it's not.
No, I mean, I feel like the way I want to reframe it is that you do what you have energy for.
Yeah.
And the key is that you're not, you say you're lazy. I don't think you're lazy. I think you do. Exactly. You pursue, you follow your bliss is how I like to reframe it. Cause you're not sitting on the couch. I mean, you just came back from a tour, and you just had the other thing I'll link in the notes of this video is you just had this awesome online contest, you know, about niching that, you know, really just, I was seeing people sharing it, and that was a lot of work, but you had the energy for it.
Yeah, it's true. And I guess the thing is, like, at some point I will be strategic about my blog posts. Like, the next phase for me is I'll get a lot of the ebooks written that I want to get written. Yeah. Then I'll redo my website. I'm going to clean up the blog, because there's some of those blog posts that frankly just aren't good enough to be there in my mind now. Yeah. I'll clean it up. And I'll make sure then that pretty much every blog post, well, not everyone, but the there'll be a more strategic thinking process around the blog posts I want to write so that they're connected to products that could be sold to.
Right.
And there'll be blog posts that aren't connected to that.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to come in more because, just to make the website work a little more strategically. So I think this is the tension always of like, there's a tension of the sustainable generosity, the real altruistic, like I'm just doing it because I just feel called to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then being strategic about it too. That's always going to be a tension. Yeah. And I don't have any particular advice for anybody about how to navigate it, except it's always going to be true. Just like for niching, this artist and the entrepreneur thing is always going to be the tension. Like, how commercial do I make it?
Right.
Or how, just creative and artistic do I go and invent and innovate something brand new? How much do I focus on who I'm trying to market for? How much do I focus on what I'm doing? It's just a tension. It's not a resolvable thing. It's not like there's a sweet spot for everybody.
Mm.
And that's just business, and businesses are just, it's useful to realize that there is a tension there and to notice where we are and is it feeling right for us? Because, I remember with Mark Silver, I was talking with one day and, writing all these free blog posts. And he's like, what's coming up next for you? And I listed a bunch of things. He's like, those are all things you don't get paid for.
Uh-huh.
Like, so you could also, it's okay to like do an ebook and get paid. And it was just, I was like, oh yeah, that would feel great. Paid for some of these efforts. And because he's like, you've got enough free stuff. You have hundreds of blog posts at that point. You've got like all these videos. You don't need any more free stuff. And that's the collapsing, I think, can be the, I need to give more. And it's like, it's somehow this, no matter how much we give, it's never enough, because it's never enough because we're trying to get people to love us because there's this hole inside of ourselves and we're trying to fill it, but it's the hungry ghost and it never gets satiated instead of moving from a place of self-love.
Yeah.
And
this is fascinating. And I'm going to link in the notes the blog post about collapsing and composure, because you've mentioned that, you've used that language throughout, and I think a lot of people haven't read it yet in my audience, so I'll link that. But this topic of hungry ghost and just trying to fill a hole in our hearts, ironically, by giving too much, in quotes, I know that sometimes I've gone there, and then I have to return to my own understanding, connection with the divine reality that all is profoundly well, in my opinion, and our destiny is one of just ultimate completion and perfection and love. And from there, and that we're all going to be taken care of, and even in this life, no matter what happens, right? No matter what happens, it's like from there, I think when we truly connect with that, there is a deep sense of security and a profound rest from which we can then have the energy to serve and to understand how do we really serve in a way that is really helping people, and also caring enough about the temple of this body to take care of it so that we can keep serving.
Well, and that I would go back to the thing you were saying earlier about trust of, I wonder if it's like at the heart of collapsing there's this fear that if we didn't have this pressure on ourselves, we wouldn't be generous, or maybe this fear that we're like secretly selfish or something. And we're trying to compensate for it. I don't know, but there's a, I just wonder about that. If we're so deeply mistrustful of who we are, that if I were to really just be able to rest and question the stressful thoughts about it and rest in some more open place, I think there's that fear. It's like, because I'm really big in Byron Katie's stuff. It's been huge for me. And people are often like, well, yeah, the world's going to hell. And so I have these thoughts that shouldn't be happening. And if I were to question those thoughts, that it shouldn't be happening, that means then I wouldn't do anything.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, well, is that true? because in my experience, when I see suffering without any stressful or thoughts about it that shouldn't be happening, my immediate instinct is still to do something. It's still to help, but it's usually a cleaner, more direct kind of help. That's less money. And because when we come with collapsing, the side that we don't see because we're in it is how gross it feels from the other side of it. How utterly unattractive it looks when it's like if you've ever been, and Mark Silver wrote this, it's not him before we met, he'd written this art blog post called The Horrors of the Sliding Scale, critiquing a lot of workshops on the sliding scale because so much of it is done in this collapsing way where people stand up at the front and at the very end, of the workshop is like, so this workshop is done on, it's page can sliding scale. So there's a bucket at the back. You can put money in. I mean, if you want to or not, you don't have to. I mean, you can take money from the bucket. I mean, that's fine. But, and what's happening energetically is they're like, I don't want to deal with my money stuff.
Right.
So I'm giving it to you. You all deal with it.
And I am going to resent you if you don't treat me with the kind of love and generosity that I deserve after having just done this workshop. And all the work I've done for free.
Right. So if they look in the bucket at the end, it's like, oh, there's way less than I was hoping for. Resentment and anger. And then that's going to show up the next time they ask while they're trying to remain spiritual and detached. Yeah. But what's funny is, I've heard Charles Eisenstein doing this. And there's a way to almost say the exact same words, but it land differently. Just, where it's like, so there's a bucket at the back. And, this is, if you've gotten value from this, if it's meant something to you, then we invite you to put some money in, because that's what sustains this. That's what keeps it going. That's what makes it possible for the next people to see it. Yeah. And if you're having a hard time, if you could use some cab fare home or you need a meal, feel free to take some money out.
Wow.
It's the same thing.
Yes.
But one is from this place of like, love me. I don't feel worthwhile. Yeah. I don't want to deal with my money stuff. And the other is from a very clean, I've dealt with it. I love myself. I'm trying to feed something. Yeah. I'm trying to show you something. I'm trying to practice and demonstrate something in front of you. And it's about something bigger than even what's just happened in that workshop. That all of it's in service too. And a trust, but the trust thing is like, I just think it's good not to be naive about it. Because you've seen this too. So many people be like, well, if you build it, they will come. And they just like, I'm just going to start my business and trust that people are going to come. I should just, and there's no strategic thought about it. They've never thought about their niche. They don't think about hubs, and it's the, just hope is a terrible marketing strategy. Yeah. Ari Galper from unlockthegame.com, he talks about hopium, this addiction we have. We get hooked on it of like, well, the pipeline's full. All these things people are about to start signing up. And when I ask people, how do you market yourself for the most part? And they say, well, it's mostly word of mouth. What they mean is I do stuff and I hope people talk about it.
Yes. Right.
And it's not impossible if you're extraordinary at what you do, but it's just not the most strategic thing I'd recommend for people. And that's okay. I mean, I feel like there's sort of a logical chain here of like, it's okay to be strategic because you have needs.
Yes.
And it's okay that you have those needs. It's okay to be a human being that needs food and shelter.
Yeah. And health insurance. And so the thing about being strategic is to pause and see how can we be strategic in, well, like you said, a clean way from a place of trusting in life and knowing that people need to see something that truly interests them. That's the key. And to make it easy, like the thing that I think I've been wanting to say these days is the marketplace, the world is not a meritocracy. The internet is not a meritocracy. Meaning it's not like I put this great video out. How come nobody's sharing it? Like, I've worked so hard, and somebody's sharing this, silly cat video or whatever. The internet is not a meritocracy. The internet is an easeocracy.
Interesting.
What's easy? What's fun? Funocracy. An ease and funocracy is what the internet and really most of the market is. So the question is, how have you made it easier or more fun in service of the human being that's in front of you?
Well, and I would also say the internet, it's like when we talk about trusting life, you can also trust the marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
Marketplace is super reliable.
Mm-hmm.
It just tells you, like, do I like this or don't I?
Yeah.
And that, I mean, if they'd ever discover it, which is why the first role of marketing is to get their attention. But yeah, if you put something out to the marketplace and there's no response, that's truth. Trust it. It's like, okay, for something in here, maybe it was what it was called, maybe it was the sales letter, maybe it was who I sent it to, maybe it was the price point, maybe it was the timing. Something in there was off.
Yeah.
You can trust it. And
I guess the point I was making is, like, a lot of people think, well, it wasn't good, and by good they meant, well, there's something. I mean, I thought my content is good. It's not good. No. Maybe the content is too dense. Maybe it's right. It's not easy or fun enough. And like you said, I mean, I love the framework you've given. Right, get their attention. I'm like totally forgetting the second one.
Filter.
What's that?
You filter.
Filter, right, and then lower the risk. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, what another way I'd say what you said is, like, easy is the new free. Because people are in so much pain and they want relief, and so if you can offer something that's easy, most people would rather pay a little bit of money for something easy than something that's really complicated but free. Like, how many websites and blogs have I gone to? I get there and I'm just like, what the hell is this site about?
Yeah.
I don't even understand. I don't understand how to even navigate the blogs, and there's no tags or categories. So, like, am I just going to search through this thing that I don't understand?
Well, this is why TED.com is so successful, and yet most academics cannot get their work out there, even though they may have the most world-changing ideas buried in these long, essays and journals.
Right. Interesting.
Right. And so it's like it was good content. It's really, really good stuff. The world needs it. The world needs it. But then you haven't made it as easy, convenient, fun as TED.com. Isn't
that interesting?
Yeah. And so basically TED.com takes those world-changing ideas and makes them accessible. So maybe it's about accessibility, right? And so I would say, instead of the strategic part that most marketers would teach us is, how do we use psychotactics to trigger our audience, to get them to do stuff?
Right.
The way that I would like to frame it is to say, use your natural compassion to say, if I were trying to teach a child this particular topic, I'm not going to give the child an academic journal, even if the child is at an age where they could actually literally read the words. I'm not going to do that, because that's not fun for the child. It's going to be painful for them. I want to see, how can I make this a learning game that makes it fun, because I care about the child's learning.
Well, here's the thing I feel like is the other side of that, or an important consideration is, the important thing for me is that we're really clear and honest about, so we're offering this thing, here's what it can do for you, here's what it can't do. Mm-hmm. And the reality is that sometimes when we simplify things, it's not going to be quite as much impact. So, I've been studying with this fellow, Stephen Jenkinson, in Canada, orphanwisdom.com. He does this thing called the Orphan Wisdom School. And there's in my class, there's 70 people, but that's one of the bigger classes. Wow. Nothing on his website says anything of here's how you'll benefit by signing up to the school personally. Yep. Sales letters. It's all just a word of mouth thing. He's had a National Film Board film made about him.
Okay.
So there's kind of been that, and it's full. He's got a 400-person waiting list.
Wow.
And when he teaches, he's not doing, there's no sound bites. He's making people work for it. And that's Andrew Lloyd Webber, his music is so fucking catchy. You hear it the first time, just immediately, I love this song. And Stephen Sondheim, his music he makes you work for it. The first time you hear his songs, you're like, what the hell was that? I don't like it. It was too complicated, too many key changes, too dissonant at times. But the 10th time you hear that music, you're like, oh my God, this is the greatest. Like, I remember first time I heard Rhythm of the Saints, Paul Simon. It wasn't as catchy as Graceland.
Uh-huh.
It was trickier. And first time I heard it, I did not like it. I remember then about the 10th time, I was like, this is one of the greatest albums I've ever heard in my life.
Wow.
So there's something in that too, but this is a filtering thing, you know?
Yeah.
And so to me, the danger of the simplification, not maybe inherent in it, but lying around in that terrain somewhere is where it's like, well, and I was talking with a guy about this in England where he's like, people do these big, multi-year spiritual trainings. Yeah. And somebody says, well, that multi-year thing, I've condensed it into a year.
Right.
And somebody else says, a year? Well, that's just their fear tactics.
Yeah.
You need certain rituals and everything. I've condensed it into a weekend. And it's just as powerful as this thing. And, I'm a Reiki master after one weekend. And now I'm, and then some shaman who's like studied for 20 years as an apprentice is just like, the fuck. And the way that can then make people dangerous because now they think and they walk around with this swagger that they haven't earned. And, where it's like, figure out your niche in a weekend.
Yeah.
And of course, it often takes longer than that, sadly, or sometimes it happens that quick, but it doesn't seem to be in our.
It's definitely longer than the weekend because your contest was longer than the weekend.
Yeah, right. So it's like it's okay in my mind to make it easy.
Yeah.
If we're acknowledging like, look, this is what this can do, and there's more.
Yeah.
But this is a good first step. This will take you like 25% of the way there, 50% of the way there. As long as there's a candor about that.
Yeah.
It's like there's a bigger thing that we're not getting into.
Yeah.
But then that's the sales funnel. That's the whole point of the sales funnel is like, look, you may not have the time and the money to make this whole journey. So like, here's something sweet and easy that can at least get you going. And, if you really want to handle it, it's a much bigger, more expensive thing because that's just how it is. And if you want to hire me, this is the amount that I charge.
I really like that. And I'm going to, because the word sales funnel for me has been tainted so much by the manipulators who use it that I'm going to call it's a curriculum.
Awesome. I love it.
Right. It's like you don't go to 12th grade first. You go to first grade first.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So if you're like, this is a first grade kind of thing,
right?
As long as we're clear about that, that's 100% ethical.
Yeah.
And fine, and it's like, we're going to talk about niching for a weekend. And the truth is you're probably not going to figure out your niche, but you're going to have some good breadcrumbs to follow and you will leave with something to experiment with, let's say. Mm-hmm. Totally ethical.
Well, and to make it interesting to say, you'll feel better than you started. You'll have more clarity.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun process. It'll be very interactive.
Yeah,
you're going to leave with a lot of ideas, and you're going to leave with one idea that you can immediately do a project with,
right?
To experiment, which is going to give you much more information and get you even closer than you were at the workshop. It's like, yeah. So, and it's because it's the side of this where people are like, but I'm so smart, and there's all these things that I have to say, and people have to do it in my language and understand it. There's a kind of arrogance, there's a lack of empathy. And one of my favorite stories I got from a colleague of mine from the Netherlands, Hovert van Ginkel, who does a conflict resolution. And there was a Muslim school in the Netherlands, and the principal called him as like, they were just having a lot of communication challenges with the teachers. And the challenge is he's not going to get a real healthy reception if he goes to this school and is like, nonviolent communication for teachers. Because the teachers are like, I'm not a violent communicator. Like, there's no relevance to them.
Right.
So the genius move that he did, this is so good. He was like, they came up with a workshop and they called it How to Deal with Difficult Parents. And all the teachers were like, yes, these parents are very difficult.
Yeah.
So it's not like you can't be sneaky and be ethical. Because, of course, in that workshop, part of what gets lifted up is they're like, oh, it doesn't feel good to be talked to the way I've been talking to people, and some self-awareness is fostered. And then from there you can say, yeah, so see, and so here's some next steps that can be taken, and a portion of those people will want to take it. Yeah, so it's good. I love the idea of curriculum. Mark Silver talks about it as like the garden path you're walking them down.
Yeah.
There's a journey. It's funny because I've been thinking a lot about point of view
Mm-hmm.
Marketing is like this thing that just seems not to get talked about very much, but basically the idea that the relevance gets established of this sort of journey from island A to island B,
Yeah.
from their problem to the result. And that's in a service-based business. That's what we're helping people do. But then there's so many different approaches to that journey. If it's the journey around health and diet, it's like, well, macrobiotic and vegan and paleo and Ayurvedic, all these different perspectives and points of view. And one of the key elements of point of view is this idea of what's the route?
Right.
What's the process? What's the system? That's like, it's generic. I get it. It doesn't work every time, but it's like the best fighting chance in your mind that people would have. And of course, you adapt it in every situation. But it's like, generally, what would you say? Like, if somebody came to you and was like, I've got this problem, you'd be like, okay, 7 steps.
Yeah.
The first thing we do is this.
Right.
Then this, then this. Because if you don't have that, it's a little scarier. And people want someone with I had my gallbladder removed in 2008. Did not want to have it removed.
Wow.
Tried all the damn things. And I was craving somebody with a point of view who could say, here's what's going on. Here's why it's happening. Based on all of that, here's my best bet. Here's the protocol would be another way of saying it. You do this, 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 this. And man, I would have spent so much money to keep it. I didn't want to go into surgery. I've
also heard it maybe called a theory of change.
I love it. Totally. Yeah. It's like, yeah, you're here. You want to be here. Here's our perspective, our theory, our philosophy on how you make that transformation. And that's, I would say, actually one of the most important parts of the filtering process.
Yeah.
Because people are going to hear it and it'll make sense to them or it won't. It'll resonate or it won't.
Right.
Because one of my colleagues in Victoria, Carmen Spaniola, she does intuitive counseling stuff. And she realized that there were certain people she didn't work well with. And so she put it on her sales pages like, if you're into spiritual hierarchies, ascended masters, theosophy, etc., we're not a fit. What a loving thing to tell people.
Yeah.
Don't waste your time. I won't waste your time.
Right.
And we just keep learning as we go.
Yeah.
That keeps refining. The filtering gets better. To me, that just seems like the most sustainable approach.
Dude, awesome, dude. This has been amazing, right? We were gonna do like a half hour, and then like, no, there's something here, and it's been like a mine of gems, except it's a sustainable one.
Perfect. No
earth got hurt.
It's been like an orchard that happened to be bearing fruit while we happened to be in it.
That's it. Is there any other link or project you want to mention?
I'm not sure when this is coming out, but nichingspiral.com/home study.
Nice.
It's like a 90-day home study. This is funny, actually, speaking about the like not making it too complex or everything, because like 90 days is a lot. But if people are genuinely feeling stuck around their niche and they've tried a lot of different things, and they just want something that they could do as a almost spiritual practice for like 90 days. Just so that premise is 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. You'll have
just to clarify and make it even more relevant. When you say a niche, I'm hearing somebody who needs this is saying, how do I describe the work that I do?
Yeah.
Is that a fair question to have answered in this kind of home study program?
Right. Somebody's like, what do you do? And you're like, and and the other thing I'd button this with is the word niche, in my experience in this field, primarily gets used as who. That's what it's code for.
Right.
Niche equals target market.
Yeah.
And I think the way we both use it is it's a little bit bigger than that. It also includes what you do, how you do it. So it's like your role in the community.
Right.
So when people are like, what do you do? And you're like, what is my role here? Like, what's the unique place that I fill? If that's fuzzy for you, or if you're getting feedback that it's fuzzy, and you're just feeling like, but if I narrow it too much, I'm going to lose out.
Right.
If you've been wrestling with
the main fear,
then it's something. And I mean, there's a book called The Niching Nest, if that's too much, but
right.
I'm excited about it. It's coming out at some point soon.
So cool, man. I know I've read an earlier draft of it, and I think it's really awesome.
It's so
So
much better. Oh my God, I want to send you the
okay,
niching. I'm gonna wait because I'm gonna redo it in the fall,
okay,
but it's a totally different thing, and it's
wow,
yeah.
very cool. So then the link again is
nichingspiral.com/home study.
yeah. I'll just be sure to check that out, and if it's not there, you can just go to nichingspiral.com
Yeah,
and sign up for the email list. I'm assuming there is one.
yeah.
Cool. All right, man. Hey,
This has been great.
it's been great. So glad to catch up. I hope we'll do it again before too long.
I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah, let me know the link, and I'll send it out to my list.
for sure. We'll do. All right,
Awesome.
man. Be well. Keep being awesome. Talk to you soon.